Hello, welcome to Lino and Olympia. We are so excited today. We've got an awesome show. Lino and Olympia is a live bi-weekly show airing on Facebook Live for all of you lovely watchers, the second and fourth Tuesdays of the month with Interfaith Works. And we feature conversations at the crossroads of humanity, justice, and belief. If you want to check out past episodes, it's really easy to find on our website, interfaith-works.org, or on our YouTube channel as well. We've had some amazing guests over the past few months. Huge shout out to Cabin Light Studios, who helps make this show happen. And today, I'm very excited because we have an amazing topic and a couple of my favorite people who've been with Interfaith Works for a very long time, Thierry and Oscar. And we are going to be talking about our new building that we broke ground on at the beginning of December. And because of COVID restrictions, we weren't able to have a formal groundbreaking, which was very sad and disappointing. So instead, we're just trying to talk about it however and wherever we can. Do you want to introduce yourselves before we get going? Oscar,
Sure.
you want to start?
Cool. My name is Oscar Ayala. I've been working with Interfaith Works for about almost 4 years now, and I was support staff for 2.5 of those years, and now a navigator.
Yes, and we'll talk a little bit more about the navigation team too. Thierry.
Hi, I'm Thierry Lino. I'm program coordinator, newly appointed. And I've been with Interfaith for 4 years.
Yeah, so we are super lucky to have some long-term staff. There's a really high turnover typically in our line of work, providing shelter and services for folks. And so it means so much to have long-term staff with us because they are able to really take all of their own lived experience and experience on the front lines and help make plans like we're going to look at today even stronger and better and more supportive for our guests and for our staff. So I want to just talk a little bit about the building, and then we're going to talk kind of about some of the current challenges that we're facing and then go back through the actual floor plan of the building sort of step by step so that everybody can see what we're talking about. So just a little bit of background on how we got here. This building is a partnership primarily with Lehigh, the Low Income Housing Institute, who are an organization that have done things locally but all over Western Washington, built lots and lots of permanent housing. They do tiny home initiatives, all kinds of stuff, but they're basically really pros when it comes to development of housing for low and very low income people. So we partnered with them, the City of Olympia, Thurston County, State of Washington, to tailor together all the funding that it takes to build a safe, healthy, beautiful building like the one that we're planning. The other thing that is really, really special about this initiative is that it was part of it's the very first real life brick and mortar building coming out of the Home Fund initiative. And the Home Fund is a tax initiative that passed in 2018, specifically for the purpose of creating more permanent housing for the people that are what we call our people. The folks who are experiencing chronic homelessness with really complex challenges, who we have worked so hard to shift the system to prioritize their needs first. So this is the very first project of that coming to life. So it's a huge deal. But before we get to that, I want to just get your all's perspective a little bit about some of the challenges that we currently have with the physical spaces that we're in. So Thierry, I'm wondering if you can take a minute to just describe some of the highlights of our current spaces that we provide shelters in.
Highlights?
Yeah, or just like what are some of the, like walk us through some of the challenges of the spaces that we operate in.
Okay, yeah, I think that for most of our guests, honestly, the spaces that we operate in are just not designed as shelters. And so we have a lot of like space issues, dorm rooms that aren't designed to really be operating as dorm rooms. So there's like not enough space. There's a lot of like ADA issues. Right now, I think our downtown shelter really only has one ADA bathroom that is in like the men's bathroom. So that's like also an issue for people that don't want to use the men's bathroom. Yeah, and I think a lot about how we've like had a lot of like really awesome like support from the faith-based community and like allowing us to use their spaces. But I think a really positive part of moving into this new building is that it'll kind of be more of like our own space, kind of tailored to what we're trying to do.
Yeah, totally. Like we joke sometimes that the basement, because we're in the bottom floor of First Christian Church in downtown Olympia and First United Methodist Church in the Southeast neighborhood. And we would not have a home for our shelters without them, but they're like labyrinths. It's like nooks and crannies everywhere, and the rooms are all different shapes and sizes. And so we've had to do a lot of like, DIY magician kind of stuff to be able to get the shelters to where they're at.
Yeah. Like when we were doing our partition install at FCC a few weeks ago, it was just like trying to fit these partitions in this like room that had this like really bizarre slant in it. And it was just kind of like, why is there a slant in this wall? I don't know. But it's because it's like not designed as a shelter, so.
Yeah, so it's one of the oldest buildings in Olympia, I learned. So, well, Oscar, I'm wondering, what are some of the most frequent like complaints that you hear from shelter guests?
One of the things that sticks out was on overnights is people saying they bump into stuff into other people's cots at night, and then that frustrates other people, so everyone starts getting worked up because this one person was trying to get to the bathroom at night.
Yeah, totally.
And just, like you said, corridors, feeling like, for new guests, it was very confusing to get through the different hallways and knowing which room goes where, and having the gender neutral bathroom be hidden behind the kitchen, and just having the different doors and windows that we don't really have good eyes on, and just being like, hey, how long has that window been open? How long has that door been open? And just, I guess people are also concerned about privacy. There's not much. The rooms are very enclosed. Can't really get much privacy. And then also outlets. Outlets have been a huge struggle. People fighting over power strips. That's always, it's important for people to have their own electricity because a lot of our clients need cell phones and laptops and computers to be able to access their services. So, it's understandable why they need it, but yeah, having individual outlets for everyone is definitely going to be a huge step up.
Yeah, definitely like people's belongings are always one of our biggest challenges, and we have lockers in both of our facilities, but they're like bays of lockers that are outside of people's rooms, and so then it gets really almost impossible to like secure your belongings. And then for a lot of our folks, they struggle with like organization of their stuff as well because of various reasons, trauma, mental health challenges, what have you. And so like having this space, like the physical setup be chaotic just almost sets people up for conflict and failure in this way. It's really hard. I'm wondering if, so all of the things, like all the knowledge, you all just like dropped so much knowledge. I think like for people who don't run shelters, it's hard to understand how much impact the physical space can have. Like I even think about at the downtown shelter, do you remember the yellow paint the yellow hallway that we had for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it just is like, it just was like canary yellow hallway for so long with like fluorescent lighting. And all of those things just grate on people's nerves. And so having, just like what you said, Terry, like having this space be able to be designed for exactly what we're working towards is going to make like such a huge difference for everybody. I'm wondering if you can talk about your roles in helping to design this layout. I think something that I try to prioritize as the director here is really getting input from frontline staff about any and all programmatic decisions that we make. And so I know that you both have been involved in meetings and things like that, so I just am wondering if you could talk a little bit about what that experience was like to think through the designing of this building.
I guess one of the biggest things is just looking, I've had the opportunity to look at a new building that was built in Seattle during the conference on ending homelessness, and just thinking about all the little aspects of the wear and tear that we're going to put the building through that we might not otherwise think about. Like one thing they installed are timers on all their ovens to make sure that clients don't forget about their ovens, light switches, covers for the outlets, trying to round out all the corners, just everything to make sure that it's as safe as possible that you wouldn't otherwise think about.
Yeah.
And just making sure you have drains in the bathrooms in case people forget about their bathtubs or anything. And just like plumbing, making sure that our plumbing is up to date and super secure, because we put a lot of stuff through our pipes.
Yeah, our plumbing currently goes uphill at our downtown shelter, so that's been the challenge.
Yeah, I think with plumbing, really big issue, like very familiar with the poop flood. Just like Lino. Yeah, and then I think there's been a lot of conversations that I know like we've had about the garbage. Also like a big thing that maybe people wouldn't think about, just like how much garbage gets tossed, and like ways to do that and that feel like effective. And then just like looking at kind of like the layout of the building itself, like what is best for like safety, I think. Like how to design the actual layout of this space to kind of accommodate a large group of people that otherwise probably wouldn't be living with each other, and the conflicts that can create. And just like making sure that that's just in the layout to kind of like help people kind of like move into spaces more freely, to kind of alleviate some of those potential conflicts.
Yeah, I think that has been like a huge thing that I've learned through this process is like how equity also applies to the physical space in this way, that I think when we first got started, we were like, it's really simple, like just give us a building, we'll put beds in a building, people deserve to be inside. Like it's really quite simple, but then when you do it day after day, you start to recognize like who does that work for and who does that not work for, and who are we inevitably, prioritizing needs over other people. And I think we have this benefit of having a really, I don't know, we just talk about those issues as a staff team pretty openly, and I'm so grateful for that, because all of that, those hard times when maybe we didn't provide the best services that we could have for various reasons, have informed like the design of this space to try to really increase equity as much as we can. Yeah. Yeah. Should we look at the floor plan?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so this is going to be a little like me kind of just talking at everybody about this, but I think it's helpful to get an orientation. So down at the bottom of the graphic we got the graphic up? All right, of course we do, because they're awesome. At the bottom of the graphic, you'll see kind of in the middle of the building, the Interfaith Works shelter entry. And there's a vestibule there, which is honestly one of the first design elements that is really different than what we've had before. We've had sort of unsecured, if you will, like entryways. And so this is kind of a, people have to go through this door and then through the next door in order to get into the space. So we're gonna be able to do what's called in safe planning for buildings. It's called SEPTED, and it's called celebrating the entrance. So we're really going to be able to celebrate the entrance and welcome people and welcome new people to orient them to the space in ways that we haven't really been able to do before. So we've got the staff offices there to the right, an interview room. We do our vulnerability assessments and intake paperwork and all of that. Sometimes really requires a one-on-one space to talk with a staff person, or if somebody's in crisis or whatever. So having more than just one office is going to be really great for that. Right now we just have one shared staff office in both of our locations. As you move down the corridor, we've got the common area to the left that is going to have a community kitchen in it. So not any commercial kitchen or anything like that, because we still are going to maintain our volunteer meal services. Because it's a really great way to get the community involved in what we're doing. But that common area, and then to the left of that, the designated outdoor area, which is going to have a pet relief zone, as well as a covered smoking area. And that space, just for sort of scale for people to understand, the common area and the outdoor area are about the size of our current shelters now. So that's going to just be a lot more space for people to be able to get their needs met outside of their sleeping areas. Moving up the corridor, we've got laundry that is going to be accessible for our guests. The closet there to the left of the laundry, we're going to have a machine in it that kills all bugs. So it's like a bed bug room. Yeah, so you can pull things into it and cook them. So mattresses, or not people, but mattresses and clothing and belongings, whatever. So that's going to help us a lot with lice and things like that we struggle with sometimes. Then moving up, the restrooms. And these were designed with tons of input from not only our general staff team and all of the experience that we've had operating restrooms and showers through the shelters and the community care center, but this was also workshopped on multiple occasions through our caucus for our trans and gender nonconforming employees. So they have a meeting that happens usually quarterly to talk about issues specific to what they're going through, and so they really helped us design this shelter to be as inclusive as possible for LGBTQ plus folks. Additionally, on that, we have a trans and gender nonconforming specific dorm, which is really rare, particularly in adult sheltering. So youth homeless services have come a really, really long way in terms of inclusivity for LGBTQ plus folks. But the adult shelter and homeless service system is really behind the times. So it felt very important for us to prioritize that in this design. Then we've got the couples dorm that we are still going to prioritize having folks be able to stay together whenever possible. And then because that's one of the main reasons that people don't access shelters, they decide to stay outside together than be inside separated. We've got some additional storage spaces, a big trash room there in the back. And then moving down to our main dorms, in the original design, we had two big sleeping dorms, the women's dorm and the men's dorm. But when COVID hit, we realized that congregate shelters are, potentially a really high-risk place for people and communicable diseases. So we added this hallway corridor through the middle. So in case there's some, somebody gets sick in one of the dorms, we don't have to close down the whole huge dorm. Plus, this is going to make those sleeping areas and that sense of lack of privacy that you were talking about, Oscar, somewhat more, I don't know, somewhat more intentional. And it's going to be easier, I think, for staff to be able to see through on all sides of the dorms with having that corridor there. So that was a really huge shout out to the design team for helping us talk through that. Also, what you'll notice in the sleeping areas is that every bed space is uniform. So it's the same partition that's safe and healthy and sanitizable, plus a locker and an outlet and a bed, a nightstand, and a lamp in every bed area. So one of the big sources of conflict that we have is folks who have different things than each other. So why does this person get a lamp this way and why? And it's because it's all up to them to figure out their bed spaces. And so we think that by being able to provide some of those things for folks, it'll really clear up the expectations and help with some of that conflict. And then moving down from the dorm areas, we've got more storage space and a staff bathroom there. And then to the lower right corner, that's the entrance for the apartments. So on top of this shelter space is 65 apartments of permanent supportive housing that are going to be for people between 30 and 50% of the area median income. So that's considered by the federal government low and extremely low income folks. There hasn't been a development for permanent housing for that range of people in a very, very, very long time in our area. So they'll enter off the Pattison Street side into the lobby, and then there's an elevator that can take them up to the 5 floors of housing above that. The other cool thing is that on top of, so this shelter bottom floor kind of juts out from the apartments. And so on top of the shelter roof is a designated outdoor space for the residents of the apartments. So it's like a little rooftop garden thing. So that gives them their own space to be able to go outside. And they also will have their common space and laundry and kitchen as well. So I guess I'm just curious to hear some of like your initial, like we've looked at these plans together, I've emailed them out to you all, but just walking through it step by step, I'm wondering like what are some of your initial reactions? Or what comes up for you looking at it?
I didn't know the common area was as big as their current shelter. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Just, the amount of space that we're going to be able to have now is just really awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, thinking about, how there's really only one way out of the lobby currently at the downtown shelter, and so it becomes like a traffic jam so quickly. There's just not enough space.
Especially when we're still doing lottery, it's just jam-packed with people for hours.
Mm-hmm. I think also for me the number of showers, there's going to be...
Well, just the fact that we're going to have showers is going to be nice.
Yeah.
And laundry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm also excited about the hot room.
Yes.
Yeah. I didn't even know that was a thing.
I've heard it was a thing at other shelters, but I think it'll be really helpful, especially with guests that really struggle with body lice and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And containing outbreaks of that.
No more just bags of clothes in the closet for 3 days.
Yeah, our current system. Yeah. So I do really want to say thank you because all of this thoughtful design was really possible because of the input from our frontline staff and just every single thing that happens, all the magic of Interfaith Works is really due to our frontline staff and the commitment and dedication that they have. And both Thierry and Oscar have been in that role, and it's really just so crucially important. I always want the whole community to know. I want to talk just a little bit about the apartments and the role that we're going to play for the apartments, because that's where the navigation team really comes in. And Oscar, I'm wondering, could you just say a little bit about the navigation team and what it is and how it functions and how it works with people?
Sure. Navigation team is very versatile. Our main goal is supporting just any of our participants in whatever goals they want to create. Our biggest idea is making sure that we are not there to tell people what to do. We're there to support people in what they want to do and where they want to go with their own lives. And whether that be getting an ID card, getting a social security card, signing up for healthcare, signing up for housing, we're there to support them and let them know that there's someone there to listen and that they are a person that matters.
Yeah.
And I guess part of the apartments is going to be nice because we're going to have one solid location where we can be able to meet with our clients. And having it be a supporting housing is just going to give these people like something that is hard to come by on the streets, and that's stability. And having that is such an amazing thing that I'm really grateful to. Like, just imagining having my clients be in an apartment where I can have direct lines and I can, have services connect to them at their own spot. Home is just amazing because it's like there's nothing really like it.
Yeah. How often do you all feel like it comes up that there's not enough housing? Like,
all the time.
All the time.
All the time. Like sometimes we have people who have vouchers or have, funding for housing, and it's just that other places won't accept them because they've been homeless for too long. So they don't have rental history, they don't have work history, they don't have credit. So having this is going to be really good. And one thing that I've realized is that some of our clients have trouble just maintaining a regular apartment because of their various mental health and physical needs. So having this supporting housing is definitely going to be a step up.
Yeah. Do you all have like people in your mind that you're thinking of that are like long-term shelter guests who we've had that have just had no options?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think about it all the time. Like, we're here in the office, I feel like I mention this every lean in, but we're here in the office surrounded by photos of people who have passed away, who would have otherwise been, is why we designed this building, is why we went through this effort, and it didn't happen soon enough for them. But I think about some of our folks have been at the shelter since we opened it 6 years ago, and there's just been nowhere for them to move on to. And the model that we had before the Interfaith Work Shelter opened, there was a very strict culture of 90-day stay shelters, and that people would have to be kicked out after 90 days because it was meant to be an emergency temporary solution. And it's like, well, yeah, but if there's nowhere to move people out to, then we just know that we're kicking them back out on the street. And so at the time that our shelter opened, it was a pretty revolutionary act, honestly, to get rid of length of stay requirements. And because of that, we've been kind of operating this pseudo permanent housing for some of our folks, but in the shelter setting, which is not ideal. It's not permanent housing. It's not that own space.
I think I see a lot is maybe not necessarily that there isn't housing available, it's that there's limited ability to access that housing. And so by having this as an option is, I think, going to be really huge for a lot of our guests who otherwise, like Oscar said, don't qualify or are unable to maintain housing in other locations.
Can you say a little bit more about what you mean about that it's not accessible? Like, it's so many hoops to jump through
Yeah, I think it's like a lot of hoops to jump through for some folks. I think rent is really expensive and it's going up in Olympia. That's just like a huge one. A lot of people just can't afford to rent an apartment.
Yeah.
And a lot of those people who like can't afford to rent an apartment also aren't qualifying for like Social Security or like
Yeah.
ADA or all these other kind of like government programs. Yeah.
Totally.
I guess that's like what I think of when I mean like there's kind of a lack of accessibility to housing for a lot of our folks.
Yeah, and then there's all the like requirements too of, you know, 3 times, like you have to make 3 times the amount of rent and income. And so for a lot of our folks who are on fixed incomes for disability, there's just no way that they can prove that because, fun fact, the federal government pays people $744 a month who are permanently disabled. They've been found to no longer ever be able to work again. And so they're supposed to live on $744. And right now in Olympia, average rents for a 1-bedroom apartment are over $1,300 a month, right? So it's just like the math doesn't add up exactly what you're saying. And what's very cool about this building is that some of the units, few dozen of the units, are going to be what's called a project-based voucher. So the voucher comes from the Housing Authority. It's part of the Section 8 program, the federal program, and it's attached to the unit itself. So no matter who lives there, if they qualify financially for being 0 to 30% of the area median income, that unit is subsidized and they just pay 1/3 of their income, no matter what their income is, to their rent every month. And then our navigation team is going to be the case management for everybody who's living in the units. And so if for some reason they're struggling to pay their rent or their income changes or whatever might happen, the navigators will work with them on their goals to maintain their housing. And then the other units are going to not have those vouchers associated with the units, but because we will be together with Lehigh figuring out who lives there, we can work with some of the other people that you briefly mentioned that have vouchers that are called the tenant-based vouchers, the other form of the Section 8 voucher program, where the person themselves has the voucher, and then they rent from a landlord who's willing to rent, and then they, again, will pay the 1/3 of their rent. So what I see as a real benefit is that these other units that are not, don't have the unit-based voucher, we can help to prioritize some of those folks who might otherwise be, we know them, we see it all the time. They have the voucher, they have what they need to be able to afford the housing, and they can't find a unit or a landlord that's willing to rent to them. So I think that like, obviously this building isn't going to end homelessness, right, in our area. It's not going to get every single person off the street because we know that there's in the ballpark of 800 to 1,000 people who are living unsheltered in our community. But what I do really believe that this is going to do is create a lot of a real shift in the capacity that we do have, particularly for the folks who are dealing with the most complex challenges. I'm wondering too, for me, this has all, because we got our start really, grassroots, really like working with the faith and spiritual communities, doing a lot of like political organizing. In the early days of trying to get the shelter open when it was the People's House Initiative, some of you might remember that time around 2012 and 2013. We were really, it was really scrappy. We really worked super hard to get it going. And so looking at this building, sometimes there's like this little bit of fear in me, where I'm like, oh my gosh, we're really leveling up in a big way. And I know we can handle it, and I know that our guests and our staff deserve it, like, so much. But I'm wondering if you all have any of those feelings, like, almost like it's too nice or something, you know, like we're not used to it. Are there any fears that you have?
Yeah. Just with the amount of people we're going to be having, it's just a much bigger responsibility that we're accustomed to now. So it's just going to come with a lot more issues that we're not going to be able to plan for.
Yeah.
So it's definitely like, yeah, there's definitely going to be problems that we're not going to be able to see.
I don't know, maybe I'm like, in this moment, I'm like, no, I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
Like, I can't. Yeah, I think that our organization has rapidly grown and expanded a lot just like in this year. And this is going to like take it to a whole nother level. But I think that that's really exciting. It's kind of like getting us to the place where it's kind of like the dream, right? I mean, it's not the end goal. There's always going to be more to do. But it's like as close as we've ever gotten, so.
To actually having that like spectrum of services for people that go from emergency drop-in to permanent housing.
Yeah.
And the support services along with that, yeah. No, we're really doing it. It's a huge deal. Any other hopes or anything about the new space that you want to add? Excitements?
Yeah, I guess I'm hopeful that we'll get more people out of the camps and into services. There's just a lot of people out there who otherwise don't feel like they have a safe place to go in town, so they just stay in the woods. And hopefully we'll be able to, you know, connect them to services and yeah, just get them what they need. Just really nice.
Yeah, totally. We've increased during COVID because the community care center day room closed. We pivoted and expanded the navigation team to provide outreach as well into encampments, which we hadn't formally done before. We've always provided more support to people beyond just the folks who we're providing shelter to. Like Oscar mentioned earlier, that when we were doing the lottery, and that was like really drop-in services for people, and they could access our clothing room and coffee and food if we had it. And during COVID, that's kind of shifted. We still are doing it to some degree, but just to think that we're going to get to, because our folks who are currently in shelter, many of them will move into apartments, and then there'll be even more apartments than that for the number of people that we currently have, and then a new 60-bed shelter space. So when I say that we're creating capacity in a way that hasn't happened in Thurston County, that's what I mean. It's like really a movement of folks rather than just moving some folks from one shelter to a new shelter. And that is really exciting to me too. Like this idea that there could be people who currently feel like they have no other option than to be in wooded areas and doorways could be given the option to come inside. And it's a like an attractive option, you know, like right now what we have to offer is a lot of love and a lot of care and a lot of fun, you know, like and jokes and whatever, like we have like the spirit to offer, but the physical space itself, it's like, you know, it's really hard to live in our shelters, you know, and so I think that that's something I'm super excited for with it. Well, we are going to be talking so much more about the new building as construction continues. Construction already started, by the way, so if you're out and about, drive by. Yesterday I was at the site and got to see the actual pipes for the plumbing, and they're really big, and they just go straight out to the sewer, and they're going to be super easy to maintain and take care of. And the elevator, you know, the elevator shaft is getting put in, and so it's really exciting, like it's really coming to life, it's really happening. So definitely want to thank all the partners. We've been working with Walsh Construction, and they also helped us with the partition install that we recently did. They've really become, really cool when you work with folks who get it, and I feel like Walsh really, really gets it, and it's really amazing. Same with Encore Architects out of Seattle. They've been so responsive to all of our design requests and talking through certain issues. And working, of course, with Lehigh has been even better than I had thought that it was going to be. And I think that we're really setting ourselves up for a great partnership moving into this building together. Anything that you all feel like you want to add before we sign off?
No. Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much for
I've
doing
never
it.
done anything like this before. It's really weird.
You are doing great. You're doing great. Thank you for coming along our wild ride and all the ways that it happens. We are posting lots of updates and information particularly about the construction and the groundbreaking and all of that, but also we will be posting a lot more about our specific fundraising needs. We are going to be doing a formal campaign as we get closer to opening the building, but please stay tuned because for all the things that we mentioned today, like the lamps and the bedside tables and the partitions and the kitchen and the common area and all those things are all opportunities for our community to help support this building coming to life and all of what that will mean for our shelter guests and for our shelter staff who support them. So 2828martinway.org, that's our website for it. You can learn more about the building and how it came to be on that website, so please make sure to stay tuned. You can also join our mailing list that way so that you can stay up to date with everything that's going to be coming up. Always check out our website, Facebook page, YouTube channel. See you next year for our next Lean in Olympia, where we get 2021, and let's hope it's better.